What is good, and we are back with another reaction video. It's your boy Pablo Gray. I say that shit backwards all the fucking time for some reason. But anyway, the title of this video is reports of police walkouts in Atlanta after charges issued to officer. It's a clip by Fox News. Before I get started, just want to say you're probably gonna be seeing me passing this Bleeze to the lovely Rain over here. You probably can't see her. I'm not gonna show you. You can mind your business. But anyway, before we get started, you like what I'm doing here, like, comment, subscribe. But yeah, before I even go to that, if you don't know what the fuck is going on in Atlanta, recently there was a murder of a black man who was drunk in his car. He wasn't driving or nothing. He was sleeping there, and police stopped him while he was, they approached him while he was in his car at a Wendy's, and you know, was trying to make this man do a breathalyzer and all types of shit. It seemed like they had a problem with what he was doing. I don't know too much about the situation, but I seen the video. I don't have enough information to make a full opinion on it, but I will say nothing calls for the murder of anybody. I'm gonna just put it like that. But yeah, man, let's get into the fucking video.
Okay, so let's talk about the charges against former officer Garrett Rolfe and what's going on in Atlanta tonight with civil rights attorney and Atlanta radio show host Robert Patillo, the mayor of Inglewood, California, former police chief James Butts, and Fox News political analyst Gianno Caldwell. Welcome to all of you.
Thanks, Shannon. Good to be here.
Okay, so we have the charges today. Politico says this: if convicted of felony murder, it's one of the 11 charges, Rolfe could face a life sentence without parole or the death penalty. Now, here's what our Fox News contributor colleague...
Y'all do the death penalty in Georgia? This is why I low-key don't fuck with Georgia. I'm gonna just put that, I'm gonna just say that.
Former police officer himself, police detective and lawyer now, Ted Williams, said about these charges today as they were announced.
We are not watching justice take place here. I don't give a damn about this white-black situation. These are human beings. This is a rush to judgment. This is to satisfy a crowd. And prosecution should never be based on satisfying a crowd. And that is what we have here. This is wholly unfair.
Mayor, I mean, you've served as a police chief. These are very difficult decisions.
I'm gonna pause it there. I kind of agree with the guy, but at the same time, again, the killing of anybody by an officer is unfucking called for. I'm sorry. The man ain't got a gun, and he ain't got a weapon. And I mean, I don't know what the fuck happened. But again, it doesn't call for anyone's death.
What do you make of this charge, and all of these charges today?
Well, we just have to back up just a little bit. First of all, let's look at what happened here. We have a young man that was detained in a Wendy's parking lot for 40 minutes. He'd been arrested before. Saw an interview of him. He was a guy really traumatized by his time being incarcerated. They called a DUI expert over to interview him. When that happened, the die was cast. That officer was there just to make sure he got another DUI stat. They weren't human. Most cops would have just said, hey, park your car, walk home. But they were...
And I'm gonna pause it there. The man is speaking truth. Again, y'all not gonna like it, but there happen to be good cops out there. And I do know some good cops would allow somebody who, like, it's at their discretion. Cops will tell you this. Their enforcement of the law is at their discretion. So, at their discretion, they feel like it's better for the man to just park his car and allow him to walk home, or allow him to call somebody to come and get him. They could do that instead of trying to get an arrest. They didn't have to try to get an arrest. That's the issue. So I can agree with what the man's saying.
Arrested him. They didn't realize the kind of individuals they were dealing with. Someone that was very traumatized, scared, didn't want to go back to jail. The fight started. Once the fight started, adrenaline takes over.
Listen, man. I've been to jail once. Or actually twice. Once in high school, but it don't really count. but happened to be in like almost a similar location. All I'm gonna say is I don't fuck with Georgia, but I can understand why this man does not want to go back to jail. Like, I wouldn't want to either. Like, and again, it's at the officer's discretion. It didn't have to go down like this, dog. And man, if you watch the video, he's saying his kids, his little girls is right down the street. He just want to get home. He got kids he trying to get to. They took somebody's dad, man.
Secures a taser. He runs. He looks like he fires the taser at the officer. At that point, the officer isn't concerned about how many feet they are apart, how many rounds have been fired from the taser, and he fires back. Now, that being said, he needs to go before justice. But here's what should not happen. You should not have a district attorney who's in a runoff at a time like this when the world is inflamed about the racist things that happened to George Floyd. And to say that he would be charged with aggravated assault because one of his errant rounds struck another vehicle shows you the mindset of the prosecutor. I'm very, very concerned about elected people making prosecutorial decisions now.
Well, and when it comes to the taser, there's been conversation about whether this officer felt that he was under a significant threat, a threat that was okay for lethal force. This is what the Fulton...
I'm going to just put it like this. Even if the man did grab the taser and shoot at the officer, that means if somebody was to shoot a taser at you, aka officer, you should fear for your life. Right? That's the only conclusion I could come to. You shoot an actual gun when you fear for your life. He shot the gun because he was in fear of his life, because the guy shot the taser, which also belonged to the officer, which is what they use for less lethal force. So if you're telling me I should fear for my life when they shoot a taser at me instead of using a gun, don't you think there's a problem there? I'm just saying, it doesn't make sense. Next time I see an officer use a taser, I'm going to fear for my life. That's all I'm saying. I'm a fear for my life.
County District Attorney, who rolled out these charges today. Here's what he said just a few days ago about a taser when he was talking about a case and potential charges against police officers for them using the taser. Here's what he said.
As many of you all know, under Georgia law, a taser is considered as a deadly weapon under Georgia law.
A deadly weapon. Enough said. Less lethal my ass. A gun, a taser, they do the same shit.
Okay, so Robert, how does that now square up with what the district attorney said today?
Well, it squares completely. And look, I've practiced law in the Fulton County Courthouse for the last 12 years. I can literally look out the window in front of me and see the Fulton County Courthouse. I've tried many cases against Paul Howard. Paul Howard has always taken the side of law enforcement and police officers. He is in his 7th term as district attorney with broad-based law enforcement support of him throughout his time in office. As a matter of fact, the criminal defense bar has criticized him for his allegiance to law enforcement. And let's understand the difference in this case between the one from 2 weeks ago, the 2 students from Morehouse and Spelman, is that the police officers in this case searched Mr. Brooks. They knew he did not have a weapon. That the police officers knew that the taser had been expelled 2 times and that it was empty at this point. That there was no threat of deadly force against them. And they still chose to shoot 3 shots at him, 2 of which hit Mr. Brooks, 1 of which hit another vehicle. The reckless nature of that, to fire lethal rounds where there are other people who are uninvolved, where one hits another vehicle that is full of other individuals.
What happened to the rubber bullets, man? That's all I'm saying. What happened to the rubber bullets? Are those not a thing anymore? Is that only for crowds? Is non-lethal only okay for crowds? That doesn't make sense. You use more lethal force on single individuals, but on crowds you use non-lethal force such as rubber bullets. Make that make sense for me.
is beyond the pale. That is why we have these charges in this case, and the idea that someone will try to defend that from a law enforcement perspective is ridiculous.
Okay, so here's what we know. Our research department says that the district attorney, Mr. Howard, says this is the 40th prosecution of police officers for misconduct in Fulton County, the 9th time they've prosecuted a homicide case against an officer. So far, 0 convictions. But Gianna, what do you make of this situation tonight, the charges, and now reports that a number of officers who think this is unjust, they can't do their jobs, and they're not showing up for work tonight?
You know what? I have a very different opinion than my 2 colleagues on this panel. After seeing the tape, and of course we have to let the investigation play out, but seeing an individual take a taser, run, that's one situation. But when you point it back at the officer and potentially strike the officer, I would be of the mindset that deadly force in that case could be necessary. I do think, though, that the officers could have handled it a whole lot differently, especially considering the fact that our country is in an electrifying point. People are tense, and people are really on.
I kind of get what he's saying too. You understand that these officers are in a position where they can use deadly force. So when you do something like that, it's only right to expect retaliation such as deadly force to come from an officer. So yeah, I totally get what he's saying, and I'm glad he backed it up by saying at the same time, being the time where you probably shouldn't be doing that type of shit as an officer. It ain't the time for it, because you about to pay for it, or so we think.
On edge, and I know that exists for citizens and officers as well. But at this particular time, and in this particular case, this is certainly no George Floyd, and this is a situation where I don't think that the charges should have been as steep. Should he have been fired? Absolutely. But should he be facing potentially the death penalty? I don't think so.
Well, look, Shannon,
Well,
the issue is...
Okay, quickly.
Just real quick, there's video, there's pictures they presented of the officer kicking the dead body of Rayshard Brooks. There's no way you can say that this was somehow within the scope of law enforcement where you're kicking a dead body after you shoot him. That is why you have these charges.
Okay,
Shannon,
let's, we're going to leave it there. Okay,
Shannon,
yeah, quickly. Yes.
Real quick. First of all, a taser is considered a deadly weapon. Over 1,000 people have died after the implementation of a taser since 2004. That's a study by Reuters. Secondly, the officer should have handled this differently. I believe that. But whether this rises to the level of a prosecution for murder, then they should have filed their charges. They should have given the officer due process. But this does seem to be a rush to judgment, and the aggravated assault charge is ridiculous.
All right, we're going to leave it there. The Georgia Bureau of Investigation, still doing its own investigation, says it had no word today that these charges were going to come down without them finishing their part of the investigation. So we will see. I think everybody who's...
All right, that's the end of the video. As much as I have to say on that, yeah, bro, anytime you got to understand, unless things change, you should expect that an officer is going to use deadly force if they even feel like their life is going to be threatened for whatever freaking reason, reaching for your wallet or for your insurance card or whatever the fuck it might be. They're going to fear for their life, and they're going to fear for their life. They're probably going to have to use deadly force in order to make sure that their life is no longer threatened. That's just what reality is. We gotta understand that's what the fuck it is, unless we gonna do something about it to change it. But yeah, until then, shit's gonna keep happening. I'm hoping people realize that where change happens is in legislation, and some laws get changed. And yeah, man, I'm not even gonna spill on that. But yeah, like what I'm doing here, man. Like, comment, subscribe, and until the next video. Yeah.